Hello, my name's Charlie Moran. I'm Senior Partner and CEO of Moran Technology Consulting. We have become a partner with the coalition as well as the HES Consortium in providing professional IT services to higher education. We've worked in many places. We'll talk about that. But in particular, we have a discounted tool set with discounted pricing for coalition members, HES members, and we're going to talk about that deck now. So switch over to that and we'll get going here. Just a little bit about us. Our firm, as I say, we're pretty much dedicated to higher education. We're vendor independent. We do not install Workday, Oracle, Ellucian, our unit for anthology slash campus management. You don't install any of those vendors' products. We are strictly do our work on the client side of any transactions. I've been working in higher education for over 46 years and enjoying it. Our management team's been together for over 20 years. We have offices in Chicago, New York, and Las Vegas. We've worked with over 300 different higher education institutions and done over projects around the globe. Again, most of the US and Canada, as you expect, but we've done some fun ones in China and Australia and a few others. We offer a full range of IT management consulting and security practices. We have highly experienced senior consultants. Again, we have a HES Coalition partner discounts. We've done over, and if you're into the ERP, student information system space, we've done over 90 evaluations and giving you scenarios and ideas of cost. What does it take to go down the various paths? And we've successfully led over 40 implementation RFP selection processes. In looking at the schools that were in the HES consortium at the time when we first got started, we looked at them and we came across the fact that a lot of them need specific pieces of help, but they don't need everything. And so what we worked with HES to do was to say, hey, there's so many schools trying to go down the path with, do I replace my ERP? What's it going to cost? What are my options? Who's a good player to work with? Who's not? And we said, why don't we take some of our big projects we've done in small, medium-sized schools, sometimes even larger schools, and break statements of work that you can then string together. So it's a toolkit made up of a bunch of tools to do that. ERP investments are probably the biggest technology investments any school is going to make. And the part that people forget sometimes, the largest single cost item is the consulting implementation support from the vendor or their vendor's partners. So you've got to plan for those and think through those very carefully. Many parts of these projects, we get into what's the pre-implementation planning for that. You just don't want to sign the contract and say, well, now what do we do? You better have yourself prepared and go into that. So we've done a lot of readiness assessment and going on from there. Because the staff of many institutions have never done this before. I mean, a lot of schools have been on their same thing 15 or 20 years, and there's hardly anybody left from the staff who was around then. There's always one or two, but there are hardly any of them. And they often say, I need somebody on the outside. Schools like that very often, will encapsulate. They don't know what they don't know about what new modern systems can do. We know the ERP replacement space, and because of that, we put together this kit. What are the services most often people ask us for? Small, bite-sized statements of work, and then pick and choose the ones you want, and then look up your size school, and that'll tell you what a fixed cost of it is. It's kind of a straightforward thing, and they're nicely discounted for schools. And if you buy a bunch of them, we're perfectly willing to sit down to say, well, if we're going to do these pieces, then maybe there's a little more discounting we can do. It all depends on what's going on. Where we've worked, I said we're over 300 schools, but I know Spring Arbor is one of our great clients. New York School Design, St. John's, LMU, Columbia. You can go through the list. We've worked all over the country, a wide range of schools, and had fun with it. And many of them are members of the coalition, and many of those are also members of the HES consortium. Well, I guess if you're a member of HES, you're a member of the coalition. Haven't quite figured all that out yet, but um, private colleges and universities, we've got a laundry list here. So if you look through this, maybe your name's on it. It's funny. Sometimes people go, you worked here about 11 years ago? Yep. Yep. And sometimes new CIOs go, somebody said you wrote a report. Yeah. We'll go into our archive, pull out the report, send it to the new CIO, and go, it's been 11 years, but not much has changed. Say, well, see, get a free consulting study today based on not much have changed since the last time. Uh, or other times it'll be, yeah, well, we did half of it and then we got distracted. And we've also worked with many HES member institutions on projects, Averett and DePaul, Furman, Spring Arbor, et cetera. So we know this space. We've been working in this space for a long, long time. And I think, as I mentioned, as a firm, we are getting ready to finish our 18th year and go into our 19th year, uh, providing these services across higher education. Our toolkit has a wide variety of tools you can pick from. Again, they're kind of bite-sized statements of work, depending on what area you want help with. We'll help you as much or as little as you. But we can talk through why people do this project or that project. There's some of them that are tools that run across no matter what you're doing, just from planning and selection all the way through implementation. So things like project planning and kick. We often want to define the drivers and desired outcomes. You'd be amazed the number of times, because we do project audits, project health checks on running projects, and when they're having trouble, we say, well, it's just not getting what we want. We said, okay, why? What was the purpose of the project? What were the outcomes? Get a new system. Okay, but besides that, why were you doing it? Very often people haven't done that, so we often get into that. One of the first things very often, though, particularly in a pre-implementation, we'll start to get into those tools, is a readiness assessment of, is your community ready for change? What are the major roadblocks to change that are going to occur within your community of users and IT on the way to trying to implement some of these new systems? You do that kind of work, and because then you have to target, what do we need to do to fix that? If you look back 20 years ago and said, where did these projects get in trouble? A lot of times the software didn't work. You know what? The software works now in the sense of it doesn't crash and all that. It may not do everything you want, but it's reliable and people. So we have a whole organizational change management statement of work to help you prepare for the people change, organization, job roles, training, um, ongoing support in those areas. So we work down that path. Sometimes we'll do an ERP business case. What are the total costs to do this? And are there any savings that we can spot as part of that? Another statement of work and analytics. Another one of prepping for data conversion, which really gets into the next one, which is data quality. The more you can clean up your existing data in your legacy system today, the cheaper the implementation will be, because it costs a lot of money to clean up dirty data. But we've got some tools and approaches. You can clean a lot of it up ahead of time. Data conversion goes a lot faster and a lot cheaper. And by the way, you know your data better. So that's where that one comes in. Reporting and integration readiness. Where are you with regard to have the technical talent to do a lot of your integrations or do reporting? And by the way, the new environments are using new tools. So maybe you're going to stop using this particular tool and have to move to a couple of different tools. What are your preparedness for those kind of things? Another one that comes up is implementation staff planning. When you do this project, you're going to need some people to work on the project. The challenge is you need very often the same people to keep the lights going and keep the school going. So we work through to try to say, how do you make that happen? Do you do backfill? What do you do? And there's some strategies around that. Every school's got different twists and turns. But you got to be able the right people to do it. You can't just say, hey, hire a consultant to come in and I'm done. They'll do all the work, because they're going to go things like, okay, tell me about your scholarship. Say it's a student project. They're not going to know about the scholarships. You're going to have people in financial aid who are involved with that and know what you've got and what the criteria are and help to do the setup of that. So there's participation levels. What we've also seen is a lot of people are because are looking at things like single sign-on and identity management, because they want to provide an easy way for people to get in and out of their systems. Additionally, some cyber insurance policies, or most of them, are saying you have to have a single sign-on approach, multi-factor authentication to make that work. So we sometimes will go in and do an evaluation of that too, because when you start swapping out major portions of your ERP stack, it's not a bad time to also look at identity management. What are your current and future needs? What's in the marketplace? Who are the vendors who probably are fit for you? Who do you want to look at? Okay, you want to look at Workday. Great. Do you have deep pockets? Great. You may not. How deep of pockets do you need? We can help you figure that part of it out and get along with it. And a roadmap and strategies. Sometimes we'll do current state and we'll do a complete RFP, ERP requirements development if you want to go to an RFP. There are times we'll help in what we call day in the life. At the beginning, before you're going to pick any vendors, we'll say, here's the probable vendors. Why don't you have them come in and say, hey, knock my socks off for half a day and show my users what modern new systems can do, and bring in multiple vendors so there's no bias, and let your community see some of that to kind of help with they don't know what they don't know about modern ERP systems and student systems. So we can help with that. That's kind of straightforward, but we can do that. We'll also sometimes develop an RFP for software and an RFP for SI, which is systems implementation. Be aware about half the vendors in the market are the only ones who do implementation. The other half have communities like an Oracle or a Workday or whatever of other firms that do that for them. But given the idea that you're probably going to have some of those other firms like an Ellucian or Genzabar, Unit 4, Anthology, bidding, you got to remember that the systems implementation questions and part of the RFP needs to be part of a single RFP, separate pricing, but a single RFP. So you've got competitive advantage all the way through. And some people want contract negotiations help. We're not attorneys, but when you negotiate these contracts, there's a lot of stuff you need to have in there, right? So you're protected. And so very often we'll work with your legal team or outside legal help to make that happen. Other times people say, hey, we don't need the help. And we're like, again, as much or as little as you want, that's fine. There are lots of other tools around pre-implementation, validation, project roles and responsibilities. We also provide what we call client-side project management. We don't implement your systems, but we will provide another fee if you want a project manager to help manage the project on your side, but also because they've done a lot of these, keep an eye on the systems implementation vendor, who very often will be time and materials, and we're able to catch a lot of the things they may be doing to jack up their hours when you don't want them to, by having professional outside help. We've talked about risk management, IV and V, they're kind of down the same path. Where's, come in a couple of days. Is the project on schedule? Is it on budget? Are there any issues that need to be addressed? And as the outside view, come in, look at it, and then we get back out of the way and go from there. Sometimes we'll help with data conversion advisory services. If you really don't have good people on, understanding your data and all that, we can help in that space. And there are times that we'll get involved with after go live too. So those are some of the tools. Again, we have fixed pricing based on school size, which is, if you're in the HES consortium, is kind of how DriveStream, we believe, has set up their costs and Oracle has set up their costs. So we said, let's keep a very similar module. And again, we do most of these projects remotely, so we haven't built any consultant travel and living expenses. COVID forced us into that space. We need to get on the road all the time. We can do most of this work, and we've done a wide variety from small schools to massive schools like University of Central Florida, 100% remotely, which means it's easier to set up meetings, but also it saves 20 to 25% of the cost of our work by not having to include hotels. If somebody wants us to come in though and work on site for bits and pieces of it, perfectly fine. Then we just add those prices on. So again, this is, take a look at it. Which of the ones interest you? If you're not sure, we'll talk. If you got the ones you think interest you, let's get on the phone and talk about them. And there's sometimes people go, oh, I didn't quite understand what that meant. I don't think I need that. That's fine. Or, oh, this other one, what is that one? Oh, we do need that. We'll do as much or as little as you want to. So you can learn from and review the full toolkit at thecoalition.us/Moran, and you should be able to see it all from there. Otherwise, any other questions? Our website's at www.morantechnology.com. Phone numbers there, email address charlie.moran@morantechnology.com. And we look forward to having a discussion with you and seeing if we can help and seeing if we can't help. Either way, we're happy to talk. Thank you.